As we have already discussed, energy, or better, the availability of energy, is strongly related to development. Nevertheless, energy is not a right for all. Two are the main problems related to access to energy: the lack of electricity and the lack of modern fuels, which means the use of non-commercial biomass, mainly firewood and charcoal, burnt into traditional devices for domestic uses, mainly related to cooking. In the world, we have 1.2 billion people without access to electric energy and more or less 2.7 billion people still relying on non-commercial solid biomass for their domestic needs. The majority of them lives in the rural areas of developing countries. More in details, the problem mainly affects Africa and Asia, less Latin America. It's worth noting that in the last decade, even Europe has experienced a relevant increase in the number of those who are living in conditions of fuel poverty. Due to the economic crisis, immigration, and other concurrent effects, such as low employment rates, some categories cannot afford to switch on their heating system or need to limit the use of cars and public transportation for their mobility. As far as electricity, today the problem is mainly affecting Africa and Asia, with more or less the same number of people. But the situation in Africa, in terms of percentage of the population, is more critical. The countries in light and dark red represent the areas where the percentage of the population without access to electricity is higher than 50. The situation is not going to improve much. In 2030, we are still expecting more or less 1 billion people without access to electricity, with some improvement in Asia, but still a critical situation in the African continent. Accordingly to one of the scenarios defined by the International Energy Agency, the so-called Universal Energy Access, in order to provide a universal access to electric energy, starting from a value of 50 up to 250 kWh per household per year, a combination of strategies would be needed. Top-down, which means extension of the national grid, and bottom-up, which means off-grid solutions, decentralized or distributed generation. In this second pathway, both standalone systems and mini-grid, often based on renewable sources or hybrid combinations, are more and more suggested. As far as access to modern fuels, the disparity in the population causes a higher number of people affected by the problem in Asia. But again, the situation in Africa, in terms of percentage of population, is more critical. The light and dark red represent countries where the percentage of the population without access to modern fuel is higher than 50. The situation is not going to improve much. In 2030, we are still expecting 2.6 billion without access to modern fuels, since the progress will be outpaced by the population growth. The situation will improve slightly for Asia and will get worse for Africa. Again, accordingly to the scenario Universal Energy Access, in order to provide a universal access to modern fuel, starting from value between 1.5 kW per household, a combination of strategies would need to be used. There would be indeed a role for liquefied petroleum gas distributed into compressed bottle, for improved cook stoves of different typology, as well as for small-scale biogas systems. Their contribution may be different and need to be properly assessed in the different context of intervention. Now that we have seen the suggested strategies, how could we select them? We cannot answer this question if we do not recall what is energy for. At the first stage, the energy development framework is made up by two pillars: household and community uses. Within this classification, we may allocate different energy uses. Energy is indeed used to cover basic needs, such as lighting and cooking. Energy is also essential to promote public services, such as health and education. And finally, energy is used to support productive uses and to foster income-generating activities, either for agriculture and for the local rural industries. At the second stage, we must recognize that the energy system is designed to meet at least two further requirements. It must promote an appropriate management of local resources, thus fostering integration among water, energy and food, or among land, environment and the climate. It must empower the local community in order to contribute to increase the local asset of capitals: economic, environmental, physical, human and social, which represent the ensemble of livelihood on which the community may rely. In line with these requirements, within the possible strategies for rural electrification, off-grid solutions have risen to the global attention, especially as far as distributed systems are concerned. They have indeed a number of direct advantages, since they are modular and cost-effective in some areas. They may unlock national resources, increase energy security and efficiency, generate new revenues, for instance carbon credits, and increase regional integration. Such solutions have also a number of indirect advantages, since renewable energies can act as a booster for local capacity building and native research or innovation. By fostering capacity building, other benefits may then come, like new employment, and true empowerment of the local community is finally met. They received also some criticisms, like the expected higher cost of electricity that they can generate and the integration with the national grid over the long term. Among off-grid systems, hybrid options seems to be the most appropriate solutions for rural areas. They are made by a renewable-based generator, solar PV, wind or hydro, coupled with a diesel generator, a genset. They have some advantages compared to fully conventional or fully renewable solutions, since they may grant higher reliability and continuity of the supply. They can reduce the storage system size and increase the battery's lifetime, and induce some cost benefit. On the other side, hybrid options increase the complexity of the system and requires that the ability to manage and maintain the different technologies is developed at local level. At any rate, provided these aspects are taken into consideration, we may also say that hybrid microgrid systems are an appropriate solution for long-term planning in the rural areas, and they may overcome the debate between top-down and bottom-up approaches. Indeed, thanks to the smart control, they can be installed as off-grid system, thus providing electricity to the rural community in the short time, and then, when the national grid will be brought to the community, they can be connected, also allowing electricity trade.